We're live. It is the Modern Fowler Scrum. It is a Friday. I am Sam here, your host. We have Will and Bill, and I've already started running off of the mouth. So let's go through. Yeah, I was just in a pairing session with Brent and Nick, and we were working on local support. And we almost, I think, got to the bottom of an important UX issue there. There's a little bit more to do. Nick said he'd carry on working on that. Sort of a little bit of a block, but I think we'll be through it. Other things going on. I wanted to work on more cleanup on website one, sort of output from the tests today, but I'm still, it is Dependabot. I'm spending all my time merging in these pull requests to upgrade the individual gems, which I was initially hesitant about, and now I'm just sort of like slaying through it and thinking, yes, this is the way to keep the project up to date. Hopefully this won't turn around and bites me, but that's been the main thing. So I think nothing explicitly blocking me there, just not enough time in the day, really. Things coming up, we've got the React mob at the top of the hour, then we've an hour after that, we've got the Agile development mob, and then the website one planning meeting after that. So a full day. I think it was Bill in first. Bill, how are things going with you?
Oh, very well. Spent yesterday and this morning working through some more coursework for the flat iron.
Mm-hmm.
Still working on the Rails module. Mm-hmm. We finish it within the next 7-10 days at most.
Right.
More than that.
Mm-hmm.
In my head. And I was actually this afternoon's the
Agile. That'll be in 3 hours from now.
3 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah. I guess we'll be looking at the Sinatra hang person app and maybe the beginning of the Rails intro app there from the.
Okay, good stuff. And not any blockers, really.
Great stuff. Thanks, Bill. Will, how are things going with you?
Fine, thanks. I've been writing tests for the for my project for the payment system that I'm writing, and I'm just about a few tests away from having, I think, what is an MVP, which is a something that anybody could use potentially.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So yeah, no blockers, nothing.
All right, good stuff. Yeah, well, I was just, that sounds interesting. I was going to ask about it. I noticed that we've got the Y Notified channel set up, but I haven't been seeing any traffic coming through it. So I guess we haven't got the notifications in place. Would you like me to add them for you?
No, I think I've sorted that out. I just haven't been making any commits.
Oh, okay. All right, so you've been doing all the work locally and not pushing up.
Yeah, because there's nothing pushed up what I'm working on at the moment anyway.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just out of interest, what testing framework are you using for the? It's Node code, I presume.
Yeah, the tests run in Node. I'm not using a test framework actually at the moment because
you were saying you wrote your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm not doing the mutation testing this time, but I've just been, commenting out stuff in the code to make sure that the test can fail. But I may put that back later. Yeah, you gave me a mutation testing framework to work with before, so I might have a look at that because that was for JavaScript, which is what I'm testing now. I'm not using a mocker or a chai or anything. Mocker. Just because I haven't got my head around what they do for you yet. I've just been I'm using equality in JavaScript.
Yes. Right.
I find easy to understand. So
yes. No, the mocker and chai give us a way of structuring the tests and a way of writing them using this sort of expect something to be something else, which I've become deeply addicted to. I mean, it's I think RSpec in Ruby was where it started, and now that flavor is of writing tests that, I mean, it's a bit of a love-hate thing because some people really, they're like, what is this kind of gunky, whereas it ends up, reading like expect something to equal something or expect something to include something. And I think proponents of it sort of feel like it's, it's less cognitive load to work out what's going on in the test because it reads closer to English.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's true or not. I've just been using it so long that I find it difficult to switch out to anything else anymore. But I guess that's like I've been institutionalized. I'm not sure that it's necessarily the best way in for when you're grappling I mean, and I think that's the biggest challenge actually with all these testing frameworks and the test code
Yeah.
and so on, is while it's wonderful in principle to have all the testing and everything else, just sometimes the cognitive load of managing what's going on with the tests, and you're effectively building two large pieces of software.
Yeah.
Is what happens. And so what I think whatever mechanism helps you manage the cognitive load, really.
Yeah, I'm going to be quite conservative about moving over to a test framework, especially because somebody who's never used a test framework before could come to the project and not understand what's going on if it's using a framework. Whereas if they know JavaScript, then they can see what the tests are doing. I like that, as long as I keep it simple, where it's either true or false. As long as I keep the code simple, there you can go, okay, yeah, this thing should equal this thing, which is almost as nice as expect this to equal this.
Interesting. I noticed Michael has also just joined us. I was going to say, Scrum over, but Michael's here. Michael, how are things going with you?
Good. So, I had turkey.
Did you?
Yeah.
Was it delicious? Excellent. I'm envious. We'll have to wait for a little longer in the UK. We don't allow ourselves to have turkey until Christmas. So, anything to report, Michael? Anything blocking you? Indigestion, perhaps, or no?
Often people have ham in the US for Christmas.
Yeah. We have turkey and then we have ham. I mean, I've never was such a big fan, but it's a ham in the for the. I don't know. I always think like when you've had a full Christmas dinner at like 3 in the UK, I don't need to have supper as well. But they still insist on putting out blocks of ham in the evening. It takes all sorts of people, doesn't it? Yeah. Any plans, Michael? Anything blocking you?
No.
All right. So, well, that's our Scrum. I don't know if there's any other matters that I could. So, I have some thoughts that we could continue that what we're just discussing about the tests there actually will. But I'll just pause briefly for people to say, okay, we've had enough of that, and move on, or raise any other matters of importance. What I will say is that I have signed us up for Adventures up for a C9 education plan. So you don't need a credit card to use C9 if you come through us. So that's kind of a good thing, because I know that was a blocker for some people. And that will hopefully we'll use those C9s for all the mobs going forward, and that will mean that we won't be dependent on one person. We can have a group of AV admins who can all like give people access to workspaces, and people won't get blocked like that. But to come back to the testing thing, that's interesting what you were saying there, Will, about the people who've not used a testing framework before. Would makes me think two things. One, because I think you've come to JavaScript through Free Code Camp, is perhaps does Free Code Camp never really touch on testing?
Well, no, but I mean, every page on Free Code Camp is the test,
right? But
it?
It has you have
the bing bing bing, yeah.
It kicks off, but you don't ever write your own tests.
No. So there's a sort of an irony there,
which is interesting. Yeah.
Although I mean, I think most people use Mocha. Right,
yes,
but
yes.
If I used Mocha, then I'd have no guarantee that somebody who used Ava is going to know how my tests are working. Which is, Ava is another. So I feel like picking one test framework is
potentially excluding some people.
Yeah, and I think, well, what's the point? Unless it gives me a real benefit, I don't know what the benefit is yet. The language thing that doesn't bother me, because if you should know JavaScript if you're looking at tests anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's these days, if you don't know some JavaScript, it's like, what are you doing? It's everywhere. The interesting thing there is that I have used that method, thinking that partly I've encouraged people in various circumstances to work with hand-rolled testing frameworks, and I've been surprised how that hasn't worked out, in as much as people that I've thought, oh, well, they're struggling with the complexity of testing frameworks, let's build a little something from scratch. Yeah, I was surprised how that didn't bear fruit for me. And I guess what I would say now with using, like Mocha, in the Ruby world, Minitest versus RSpec versus any of the different ones is that even though they're the testing framework and then they're kind of creating their own sort of domain-specific language, they're still in the underlying language. So I think like it shouldn't be too big a burden to, you know, whichever the testing, like if somebody's more familiar with Aver or, you know, different ones. I mean, like, I think Mocha itself, within it, you can switch it so that it uses Chai or Expect.js, or like it can actually switch to have whichever syntax people are familiar with, which is one thing. I think the other thing is what the test frameworks particularly do is that they provide this framework to ensure that the tests don't run in the same sequence all the time. And there's this kind of like trying to avoid, there's a set of common patterns of failures with tests that these frameworks are intended to allow us to address. But yes, I think you shouldn't adopt them until you feel convinced about what they are. But it might be interesting, not now necessarily, but at some point to enumerate on the value of the test frameworks. It's a good open question.
Yeah, I've definitely come up against the idea that my tests at the moment have to run in the sequence that I've written them, and ideally they wouldn't. They would run independently of each other.
Right.
It's not slow enough though at the moment for it to be a problem. So, and yeah, maybe that's something I should play around with, the order of the tests, to see if I'm not testing my things properly. Because you know, sometimes the test depends on a state in the system.
Yeah, right.
So if a test framework can help with that, then that's cool.
I think that's often what the test framework does, is that it has, you know, kind of like a setup and tear down things as well.
Yeah.
Basically say, okay, here is a set of tests. The state needs to be rolled back to whatever it was at the beginning, and all 5 of these, and it shouldn't matter what order they run in, and they're effectively kind of like running in a sandbox each time. And so yeah. Anyway, I'll do push up some code, because I'll be interested to look at it and see it come through on the Why Notify channel, and then I can have some. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. All right. Well, that's our Scrum. I am going to go and get some tea and also a bagel with peanut butter and cucumber on it, which I've discovered is just the dream midday snack for me. And it'll be React Mob at the top of the hour. See some of you there, and the other mob. And if I don't see any of you again, have a fantastic weekend.
Thanks very much. See you all later.
See you soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye for now. Cheers. How do I turn this thing off? Where's the button gone?